the 3 types of content that you need to be creating if you want to build a following, establish authority, build trust with that following that you've built, and actually make some sales from your presence on social media and the content that you are creating. Because it comes down to these 3 different types of content, and you need to be utilizing all of them, but you need to find a balance between each of them which works best for you and your business. So, without any further ado, let's just dive straight into the first content type. And that content type is nurturing. Now, this is the type of content that you will see most often on Instagram. They're the value providing posts, the interesting posts, the eye-catching posts, the posts that actually teach people something, especially if you're in the niche that I'm in. So for example, I am in the social media marketing niche. If you go onto my page, you will see that the majority of my content is value adding. I'm teaching people different things. I'm making people aware of certain strategies, tips, tricks, all of these things that are going to help benefit others. That is my nurturing content. And this is the core pillar of the content that I am creating. Because what this does is it builds my following and it establishes my authority. One, it builds a following because it reaches more people, and when people see content that they value and that benefits them, they're going to want to consume more content just like that. So it encourages those page visits, encourages those follows, and grows that audience. But what it's also doing is it's establishing my authority. Because I'm teaching these things, I'm establishing my name in the social media marketing space because I am providing this value and teaching these people these tips, which therefore reinforces my knowledge within that niche. So it establishes that authority. So this is the core pillar. This is the content you want to be creating the most of. Because if you don't create any of this content, you're not going to attract anybody to your page. If all of your content is very salesy, which we're going to talk a little bit about later, nobody's going to want to follow your content because they don't want to just see a sales post every other day or every day in some people's cases. You need to be nurturing that audience. You need to be bringing in new people and keeping people around that have already followed you. And to do that, you have to keep providing them value. And I know value is this very cliche piece of advice, but you should understand what value means to your audience. For example, value to my audience is how to grow on social media, how to leverage an audience on social media, how to monetize that audience that you have built. That is the value that I am providing to my audience and that they see valuable to them. Value is going to be different for everyone, but as long as you are nurturing your audience with this value adding content, you are going to be doing just fine because you will attract new people and you'll keep people sticking around that have already followed you. So that is the core pillar. That is the content you need to be creating the most of. But the next content type that you need to be thinking of is the personable content. Content about you. Content that's going to show people behind the scenes, into your daily life. People need to understand who you are, especially if you are a personal brand. If you are a business, your employees. So, personable content is going to build that trust. You're never going to sell anything if you don't have trust with your audience. But to build trust, they need to understand who you are. And especially as a personal brand. Because people trust people. People don't trust content per se. People do business with people. If you want to create a coaching business, people aren't going to hire you as a coach if they've never seen who you actually are before. So having that personable content gives people a behind the scenes, allows them to understand what you're like as a person, your mannerisms, your enthusiasm. Get on camera. The personable content for me comes from my Instagram stories. Instagram stories are a very, very good way to just be personal with your audience. It's a much less polished content format. You aren't having to edit things so that they're perfect and look nice and create this lovely aesthetic feed. It's none of that. Go on your stories, hold up the camera, say what you're thinking, show people what you're doing, and they will enjoy it. It's personable. People want an inside look into your life. Trust me, people are nosy. If you could see your favorite creators' livelihood and what they do on a day-to-day basis, great. And even though you don't know these people one-to-one or on a personal level in real life, they're going to feel as if they do because they see your everyday life every single day. And that's from the fact that you are posting personable content on your stories. I see the most interaction or people actually DMing me from my stories opposed to my feed content. So they're a great conversation starter because let's say you like going down the gym. Might not have any relation to your content, but you will have audience members who also like going down the gym. So if you post a picture of you in the gym or showing your workout or eating a certain type of food or going somewhere, and somebody else within your audience enjoys that same thing, they're going to reach out to you and relate to you on another level that you didn't know beforehand, which in turn helps build that trust, build that relationship, and consequently could potentially lead to that sale, which is what you are looking for. But without that personable content, it's going to be very, very difficult to actually build that trust with your audience because it's very difficult to trust somebody who isn't a person. It's very difficult to trust a logo when you don't know who's behind that logo. So get your face out there, get on video, show people what you're doing, be personable, be you, because that is going to build trust with your audience, which is going to really, really help close that sale should it come to it. So we have nurturing content, we have personable content. Now the final type of content that you need to be producing is call to action content, content that actually sells, because you've provided that nurturing content. You've continued to add benefits, to add value to your audience and new audience members. You've built that trust with your personable content, and now it's time to leverage that audience that you've built with some call to action content whereby you're actually selling a product, promoting your service, telling people about your coaching. Because if you don't do this, then you're never going to sell anything because people won't understand that you actually have something to sell. If people don't know you have a coaching service, then they're never going to ask you for coaching because you haven't told them about it in the first place. So that final content pillar of call to action, sellable content is key, because if you actually want to make some money, which I assume if you're listening to this podcast, you do, without this type of content, you're never going to. So you could also do this on your stories. You could be personable, be building that trust within your stories, and then throw in a little call to action story, telling people that if they do want to sign up for your coaching, they can, and give them a call to action of how they can do so. If you want to put it on the final slide of your carousel that's value adding, fine, by all means. Or if you want to have a sole dedicated call to action post, do it. But the one thing I want you to be wary of is that this has to be balanced. All of these content pillars have to be balanced. Yeah, you can post personable content on your story whenever you want. Please do. And the majority of your content needs to be nurturing, value adding. You can't just post a call to action post every single day because you will annoy people. People will unfollow you because people don't like to be sold to all the time. You need to give more than you take. So find a balance, find what's right, find what your audience is okay with, test different things, but don't post every single day a call to action piece of content. Every now and again, once a week maybe, put out that call to action, because then that's a good balance between the fact that you are providing all this value, but then only asking very little in comparison for something in return. And that's it. They are the 3 content pillars that you need to be focusing on. Nurturing content, so value-adding content, personable content, and call to action content. Because that nurturing content builds your audience, it builds your authority. The personable content builds trust, and then the call to action content actually sells. But those call to action content won't sell if you haven't posted the other content beforehand to build that authority and the trust with the audience. So you need to be doing all three, but find a good balance between how much you should be posting of each.